Hello everyone, it's Sheila back again. Welcome to my channel. Today is a rather miserable wet day and the temperature has come right down. I'm not sure what the temperature is actually. It's probably about 17 or 18 degrees today, which is not a lot actually. But I have been messing about most of this morning. I haven't done any knitting up to now. I'm just having a cup of tea. I've just had my lunch. I'm having a cup of tea. I want to show you what I've been messing about at. I've got something here to show. As you all know, when I sell knitting patterns, anyone that's bought knitting patterns, I put things like this inside to stop the envelope being bent. And this is what I will prefer because it doesn't cost me anything. This one here is a half of a sheet of card that I did buy because I can't always have enough of these. These are, well, as you can see, it's off my cereal box, and I get, out of that cereal box, I get two like this. I'll show you. This is what I've been doing all morning. I've been cutting these out. I get two full ones like this from the cereal box, so the back and the front, and they're quite stiff, so it stops because I don't want to send the patterns out. If I put just the pattern itself in the envelope, the postman probably just bends them and pushes them through the letterbox. I've done things like that with things I've had that's come through my door. So when I do send anything out, this is the one I have. I've got 3 to send out up to now, but I'll put a write on, please do not bend. Hope that the postman doesn't bend them, but they have card inside, you know, so I don't think the postman would bend them when they realise there's something like that inside. But just to save a little bit of money, so I don't have to put the prices up, because if I buy this one here, I have to buy this card here. I've looked around and tried to get the thickest I can. Well, the thicker you get, the more it costs you. This one is 300 GSM. That's what they call the thickness of the card. Now, when you buy printing paper, the printing paper is anything about, ordinary printing paper is 75 to 80 GSM. That's what the most printing paper is. But I buy 120 GSM for to do the knitting patterns on, because the thinner stuff, the print shows through on the other side, so you need something thicker. So, but the only thing is, the thicker it is, the more it costs you. It cost me, I think I did buy it in bulk, so I bought 8 packs of 250. There was 250 in a pack, so I bought 2,000 altogether. That was 8 packs, and each of those packs with 250 in, if you are buying them separate, they cost you about $4.99. Most places, some cost you a lot more than that. Online wanted a lot more than that, but I found a one where I bought it in bulk and I got it for, I think it was just over £4 for the 250 sheets. But this card here is 300 GSM, so it costs a lot more. So I have a pack somewhere for it here. This is what I buy for that. This is A4, they call it Pastel Pearl card. I bought this from, I think it was the Range. Yes, it was the Range, that was where I got this from. And you get 40 sheets, and as you can see there, it says 300 GSM. That's the actual thickness of the card. Now, I weighed one of these cards, well, I split it in half. This card here, half of this card weighs 9 grams. This one here weighs 14 grams. So this is probably about 500 GSM, the thickness of this card, which is what I would prefer, but I can't seem to get any. Buying card like this, that seems to be the thickest I can get. So I make do with that, and it is quite, it keeps the card stiff in the stiff enough in the envelope. So if I don't have anything like this, this is what I have to use. But this did cost me, I think it was £3.99 for 40 sheets, which works out about, using half a sheet like that, use about 5 pence. That's about 5 pence to my patterns, to what I have to pay myself to send them out. So I try to keep it down. So anything I can make my own cards out of, like the cereal box, that's all I get. A full card, you know, the full, I think it's 6 by 9, something like that, 6 by 9 inches. To get the full card out, I only get 2. But this is what I've been messing about with, what I do. This one here, as you can see, there's pieces where I've got a sellotape where I've stuck pieces together. This is where the sides of the card, and I've stuck the pieces together on that one. So that was another one, that's 3 I've got out. That was another one with the pieces off the sides where I've stuck them together. So I've got 4 out of that one. And this one is, there are actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces down there that I've been sticking all the pieces together to make a card. So that is 5 I have now. No, is that 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, that's 5 I've got. And then I had a card the other day from a lady called Helen, and I've used that. I've cut out to the shape, and where the fold is there is writing on there, but there's nothing that's personal or anybody can work out from it. But I've cut a little bit I had to cut off. I've cut across where the fold is so it stops it from folding. And that's quite thick. It's not quite as thick as the cereal box, but it's nearly near enough to it. And then that was another box I had where I think there was 2 chocolate eclairs in there from Aldi's. And that has, I think it was, I had to join one piece. That's the full piece up to there, and I had to join a little bit on the end to make it the right length. But I put little bits of card over to where the folded parts would be on the card, so it stops it folding, you know. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 7 pieces of card here for the next 7 orders that I get for my knitting patterns, which sometimes they come in. Sometimes I'm sitting at my dining table in the back room in my dining room. Sometimes I walk or I get an order on eBay. You know, I get that cash sound that comes up on my phone, and I walk over to the table, and when I first put the patterns up, I'm at this table all day long. As soon as I finish one, walk away, the cash thing goes again, and that's just the first couple of days, but after that it does quieten down a little bit, which is quieting down now after the last pattern that I put up. But I am almost finished another one. I'll be putting another one up probably in the next few days. I just have to finish knitting the last size, and I'm almost up that far. Oh, I haven't got my knitting. That's just my little, it's an old Christmas bag that I just keep my ball of wool in when I'm knitting to stop it rolling around the floor. But I have got the back and the 2 fronts done on the little 22-inch cardigan. I'm making this one for a little girl because it is a colour that you can have for a girl or a boy. And I think most of these ones I've done have been for, most of them I think have been for little boys, so I'm doing this one for a little girl. And I am on the sleeve. I've just started shaping the armholes on the sleeve, so I have one more sleeve to do after that. I'm going to put a little collar on it on this one, and that's all the wool I have left, and I know there's enough to finish the cardigan. There'll probably be a little bit left over. I would have wanted to do a little hat, but I did give my granddaughter some of this wool, so I haven't got enough of it to do a hat as well, because this is some wool I got from Aldi's quite some time ago. So if there's enough to do, I might make just a little headband out of it to go like an ear warmer thing, because you know our summer doesn't last long, we'll be into winter before long. So that is what I'm going to finish today, and the next few days all we are getting is this rotten weather with rain and whatever else comes. We're not getting much sunshine, so I know I'm going to have plenty of time. I'm going to be sitting in the house knitting. So when I finish that, I'm going to finish this one that I started a little while ago. This is a 22 inch. I couldn't remember what size it was. I had to count up the stitches. Little rosebud lace one. And I did make this into a V-neck, because I wasn't sure the amount of wool that I had of this. This was what I had left over from another one I did, and I wasn't absolutely certain whether there was enough to do the round neck and all that, so I make it into a V-neck, because you save a little bit wool with not bringing the stitches all the way up to the neck where you just do the V. You save that little bit wool in the front there. So I'm going to get that one finished, and I'll be starting to write the tutorial for this one, because I haven't done any V-neck cardigans for little girls. They've all been button-up ones. So that's what I'm going to do when I finish the little red one, finish that one, and then sort out whatever else I might have to do after that. But what I was telling you about what I was doing with to make the cards and that is something I am very frugal. I always have been, ever since I was first married. I'm going to have a drink of my tea and all before it gets cold. But when I was first married, I'll do a little bit of knitting while I'm sitting talking. Find my needle and stitches here. But like I was telling you, when I was first married, my husband had asthma from a very young age, from about 2-year-old, I think. His mother was one of those old-fashioned women with old-fashioned ideas, old wives' tales. She told me that somebody gave her son, when he was 2 years old, gave him a blood orange, and that gave him asthma. I never laughed at her at the time when she told me, because she was quite a good age when she had my son. I think she was well into her 40s. He was a late child. And it is funny, some of these old wives' tales. And anyway, he had asthma all his life. And as he got older, it got worse. And I think he was working. I remember one time when I had my first child, Mark. He was working in a place called Hall Sections. This was in North Shields, and Hall Sections did car parts for Fords. Well, Fords were always going on strike, and he ended up on a 3-day week at the time. My son was born in 1969, so some of you older ones might remember the strikes and that went on through Fords and all that. So we ended up on a 3-day week, and we never got any money for those days, because it wasn't, in those days you didn't get paid like what you do these days. You just had to live on what you got on the rest of those days. Well, he had 2 days pay from Fords, and when Fords were working, from Hall Sections, when they were working properly, he used to get Saturday morning overtime in. Sometimes he got all day Sunday, but you had to work Saturday to get the Sunday, and then they used to have so many nights a week. Well, all that stopped, and I think we ended up using most of our savings, because we couldn't get, I think after a while, if you had so much money in the bank, because we had savings as well, we couldn't get any help. We just had to live off those 2 days' wages that he was getting, and the 2 days' wages and whatever we had in the bank. Well, that soon went, but once that money in the bank went, they started to give us, the DWP at the time started giving us a little bit to help, because you couldn't have money in the bank in those days. You still can't have money in the bank, actually. But anyway, after a while, he ended up getting paid off from this because the place ended up shutting down because of Ford's going on strike. Anyway, I'm going to have another drink. And it did take a while for my husband to find another job, because in those days you had to tell anywhere that you were working for. Like saying he had asthma, and it was really bad. I mean, sometimes, he had so bad, the attacks were so bad, he couldn't go to work, and you had to tell these places you were applying for jobs about things like that. So it was very hard for him to find a job, but he did eventually find one. But in the meantime, he had to claim dole for a little while. And while he was claiming dole, that's when I started with knitting. I had one or two friends in the street that liked the little sweaters and cardigans I had knit for my own son at the time, and they asked me if I would knit. This was just hand knitting at the time. They asked if I would knit for theirs, and they were paying me a little bit for doing them. Mine, it wasn't very much, because a lot of us were all in the same boat. A lot of people around where I lived actually worked in the same place as my husband, but anyway, I made a little bit of money while he was on the sick. But I had to declare what I was doing to the DHP, and they let me keep, at the time, £4 of what I was earning, and anything else I made after that came out of the benefits that they were paying to my husband. So after a while I got sick, and I said to my husband, I'm not doing it. I said, I'm not doing this for £4. But a lot of, in those days there was no such thing as internet, and you didn't go, your wages and things, any money you got didn't go through the bank and all that like it does now. So at least I could keep a little bit to one side and not tell the DWP how every single penny that I earned. That was what I used to do. But anyway, my husband started working again, and so I could do what I was doing again, doing a little bit hand knitting for friends and that, and keep everything I made. And then I think my husband was working in another place where I had the same problem. I think it was a pet food factory. I think they went under as well. Well, at that time, I had 3 children by that time. And there was this lady, I was actually doing childminding. And while my husband was still working, I was doing childminding. So I was looking after this little girl, Samantha her name was. And this lady was going out to work, her mother, and she was paying me monthly, because that's how she got paid. And at the time, she knew I could knit by hand and that, and she said to me one time, I've got this knitting machine, she says, Sheila, I don't know how to work it. I've tried and I just can't get away with it, but she says, if I lend it to you, she says, would you knit some cardigans and things for Samantha, because she says it'd be a lot quicker than doing it by hand. She said, I was going to ask you to do it by hand, and then I remembered I had this knitting machine, so I said okay. So she brought the knitting machine, and I was knitting for little Samantha, and I was knitting for my own. You're doing those little sweaters and cardigans and things, where you had little motifs on the front like rabbits and butterflies and things for little girls with flowers and all that. And a lot of my neighbours and friends were asking me to knit things for them, so this lady let me keep the knit machine as long as I wanted, as long as I was knitting something now and again for little Samantha. And there was one month she didn't come with my money. She used to come when she used to pick when she got paid, when she used to pick Samantha up. She'd give me my wage for the month, and it didn't come. And she said, I'll pay you. I haven't got any change just now, so I'll come back when I come back on Monday. This was on the Friday, come back on the Monday, and this went on for nearly another month and never got paid. And then she told me the truth, she had actually lost her job, and she was going around looking for work while I was looking after Samantha and feeding Samantha as well, because this little girl used to come very early in the morning to my house And sometimes she hadn't even had her breakfast because my kids were still getting ready for school. And they were, having us putting their breakfast out, and she was sitting looking at them. And she was younger than mine. She wasn't like saying she wasn't school age. My youngest one wasn't school age, so the two of them used to play together. And I asked her one time, I says, what did you have for your breakfast this morning, Samantha? And nothing. Mummy didn't have time. And I realised a lot of the time she was coming in the morning, she wasn't having any breakfast. She was just dropping her off about 7 o'clock in the morning and rushing to get to wherever she was going. So I just started giving her breakfast with my kids, and so she had her lunch as well. And most times she had her tea, because sometimes her mother didn't come till after 6 o'clock to pick her up. And this went on for a while I was feeding this child for a couple of months, and I wasn't getting paid. And that was when I started asking questions, and when I was going to get paid. And that was when she told me she had lost her job and she was trying to find another one. But she says as soon as she was going to borrow some money off someone to pay me, because she didn't have the money to pay me. And I said, I can't even remember this lady's name. Actually, I just remember the little girl's name. And I said, that knitting machine? I says, how much is it worth? And I can't remember how much she said, but I said, will it cover the 2 months? If you let me keep that knitting machine, it'll cover the 2 months that you owe me. And she agreed. And I looked after that child for about another week, I think it was. And she eventually had to give in and take her away herself, because she couldn't find a job. She was wanting to do one of these jobs where she went around factories and things like that, trying to get them to take up some product or something like that. And she wasn't having any luck, and they had just paid her off because, she wasn't earning them any money, and she couldn't find that sort of job. So anyway, that was the end of my child minding and the start of my machine knitting. I used that knitting machine. It was just one of those knitting machines that had 8 buttons on, and you pressed the buttons for whatever pattern you were doing. So every row, it was usually every other row, you had to press the buttons to make it was a lace pattern or a fair rail, whatever you were doing, you had to press the right buttons. You used to have a chart to follow for the buttons and that. And then I thought to myself, I was earning a little bit of money doing these, because I had 1 or 2 friends that worked in factories, and they were taking the things I was knitting into the factories and selling them for me, and I was giving them a little bit percentage of whatever they were getting, so it was helpful for them as well. And then I was thinking, surely I can find another knitting machine. I didn't have to keep pressing these buttons and that. So that's what I did, and I invested in it. I think it cost me about £250 for this punch card one, where you just punched the pattern out on a card. And I can't remember, I think there was about 24 stitches on the card. And you just it just turned it around each time you knitted a row. It turned the punch card around and so on. So all these patterns were done automatically. If you had the 2 colours, you had the 2 colours in the knitter, and you were just knitting going backwards and forwards, and this punch card going round now, and it was great. And that was great for a while, and then my husband started having problems with his health, because the asthma was starting to affect his heart, and it was making him having trouble breathing. And every time he went to the doctors or the hospital, they were just blaming the asthma for the trouble he was having breathing, but it was because of his heart. So he started losing a lot of time off work again, and he ended up on the sick. Well, on the sick, I could keep £15 of what I was earning, and the rest what I was earning went to pay for so that the DWP could take off that amount, deduct that amount from our benefits and all that. And I did that for quite some time, and decided enough was enough, that I don't see why I should be doing that, and them taking every halfpenny that I was making apart from that £15. So I stopped doing it. And anyway, my husband died in 2014. It got worse, the asthma and the heart, the 2 things together. But he also ended up with bowel cancer. But the bowel cancer was caused through lung cancer, which he didn't know he had, because my husband had smoked since he was 19 years old. And he did give it up for 5 years after, when he was having trouble breathing, and I refused to let him smoke in the house anymore, because he used to smoke in my living room. And I was cleaning the pictures one day, because I don't smoke. I've never smoked in my life, except for trying it one time, and my mother nearly killed me. But he was smoking in the living room, and I was washing. I've got pictures on the walls, and I was washing those pictures one time, and that white cloth was brown. And I refused to let him smoke in the house anymore. I said, you could be passing that on to my kids. And he used to go outside to smoke and that. But he did give it up for 5 years. And we were talking to someone. He bumped into an old friend he hadn't seen for a lot of years. Bumped into him one day when we were shopping and talking, and this friend, they were outside, and he offered him a cigarette, and he took it without thinking, started smoking, and he was smoking again. And he smoked right up until a year before he died. He gave up a year before he died. But I have 3 sons, and I told them, I didn't tell them they couldn't smoke. I told them it was within their own interests not to smoke. I say it's health-wise and money-wise. 2 of them took notice, but the youngest one never did. He smoked, and he now says he wished he had listened to what I had said. I think he has given it up now, but it took him a lot of courage to give it up. But that was just a little bit of me messing about, a little bit of knitting, and a little bit of story. So give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll talk to you again sometime. So bye for now.